The Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Usually when you hear the term library, the picture comes to mind of rows and rows of books and magazines and books on cassette tape, many of which are totally outdated, except maybe for the fiction. Then, of course, there's Marion the librarian, and then there's the Dewey Decimal System. Kind of reminds me what Cosmo Kramer said on Seinfeld. The Dewey Decimal System. What a scam that was. Well, in this nugget, we're going to explore the collection of publications upon which all of the information in the ITIL Foundation is based upon. And no, I won't be sending you on a scavenger hunt at the card catalog, I promise. So, giddy up. In this nugget, we're going to cover 4 general areas. We're going to look at kind of the background of the ITIL because that library has really changed quite a bit over the years. It's actually gotten smaller, and reliance upon online content and white papers has become greater. We'll look at the ITIL version 3 books, all 5 of them, and break them down. We'll discuss the benefits of ITIL and why we should use the library, and then we'll also look at some potential pitfalls of basing your IT management on the ITIL itself. Hey, behind every silver lining there's a cloud. All right, so let's get started. The IT Infrastructure Library is basically a group of best practices for IT service management. It was generated back in the late 1980s by a British government body that's now been absorbed within the Office of Governance Commerce, or the OGC. It used to be called the CCTA. And now this ITIL is the de facto standard for IT service management. And the version that is previous to version 3, of course, is version 2. And this is basically an evolution into a process framework and best practice activities that have been constantly updated to try to reflect the current condition of technology and technology management. It's available to the general public, and it's available under an open copyright, which allows organizations and companies and businesses to use the information freely, and it's supported by many well-respected companies, many Fortune 500 companies. Now, the goal of the library and the books of the library, and you can see here, this is actually the books of version 2. So I'm going to put V2 here, these books. Now, these books have historically explained how processes are formulated within an organization. So it's a framework. In a way, it's kind of like, if you're familiar with security, it's like IPsec, or IP security, which is a framework that as newer algorithms and as newer protocols for security arise, you can plug in those new implementations, those new mechanisms. Same thing with like wireless security. As they come up with new technologies and new algorithms and mechanisms, you can plug in these new techniques, these new processes, these new algorithms, even theoretical information into the framework. So this is not a hard and fast how-to guide on how to do IT management. It's a way to formulate a process. It's a frame of reference for IT management terminology and objectives that are publicly agreed that should be objectives that are standardized and accepted throughout the industry. It describes methods for managing technology in the business environment and a nonprofit organization. Now, the background of this is these were all based on a very famous guy named Dr. W. Edwards Deming. And this fellow is so important, he's so critical, he's so vital to this entire ITIL that I'm going to take a sidebar real quick and talk briefly about W. Edwards Deming. It's interesting that the ITIL is really championed by the UK and Europe. It's widely used over there. It's kind of a multinational entity. But interestingly enough, it was an American statistician, professor, author, lecturer, and consultant named Williams Edward Deming, who was born in 1900 and died in 1993, that really is credited with improving this entire process. As a matter of fact, he was heavily involved during World War II, but he's best known for going to Japan after the surrender of Japan and helping them rebuild their infrastructure. A lot of the techniques that he used in Japan for manufacturing and business was actually used more in Japan than it was in the United States for several decades, which really accounts for how well Japan did and has done for so many years in manufacturing and product development and business development. I know he looks kind of stern here, but he was really a very kind person. Subtle, humorous, really loved music, sang in a choir, he played the drums and the flute, and he even published several original pieces of religious music. Deming had a very famous what we call 14 points, 14 key principles for management and transforming the effectiveness of business. You should probably know these. First of all, you want to create a constancy of purpose for improving products and services. The goal here is to become competitive, to stay in business, and of course, provide jobs. Secondly, you want to adopt a new philosophy of cooperation. Win-win. Now, you've probably heard that phrase win-win forever, okay? But guess what? It was created a long time ago by Dr. Deming. In this scenario, everybody wins, and you put it into practice by teaching it to the employees, teaching it to customers, teaching it to your vendors. Thirdly, you want to cease dependence upon the mass inspection of your products or your services to get quality control. Instead, you want to improve the process and build quality into the product from the get-go. Fourth, you want to stop awarding business just on the base of price or cost. Instead, minimize the total cost in the long run and then move toward a single supplier for any one item based on long-term relationships of loyalty and trust. Ironically, that concept is kind of the driving point behind goofy comedies like Tommy Boy with Chris Farley and Gung Ho with Michael Keaton. Then, of course, there's constantly improve. Constantly improve and do it forever. The production system, the service, and the planning of all your activities. The goal is to improve quality and productivity and then constantly decrease cost. And then next, you want to institute training for skills on an ongoing basis. Adopt and institute leadership for the management of people. Recognize different abilities, aspirations, and capabilities. The aim of leadership should be to help people, machines, and gadgetry do their job better. Drive out fear and build trust so that everybody works more effectively. Then build down barriers between departments or business units. Abolish competition between business units. Build a win-win system of cooperation within the organization. Eliminate meaningless slogans and exhortations and targets for reaching zero defects or new levels of productivity. These things only create adversarial relationships, which result in low quality and low productivity. Eliminate numerical goals, numerical quotas, and management by objectives. Instead, substitute leadership. Number 12, remove the barriers that rob people of the joy of work, of the good feeling of putting in a good day's work. This means abolishing annual ratings or merit systems that rank people and create competition or conflict. Put in place a vigorous program of education and self-improvement. And then 14, put everybody in the company, the organization, to work to accomplish the transformation. Transformation is everybody's job. Deming said a lot of things. He was brilliant. He taught a lot of things and had a lot of great quotes like, "There's no substitute for knowledge," or "The most important things cannot be measured. Experience by itself teaches nothing." He also said, "By what method? Only the method counts." And my favorite, "You can expect what you inspect." So anyway, know about this guy. Go do some research about him. He's a fascinating person, and he's really behind a bunch of well-known systems that are used in the corporate world now. Deming's methods and writings have spawned systems like Six Sigma, Total Quality Management, TQM, Lean Production, and TPS, Toyota Production Systems, among several others. As Mr. Rooney's secretary said on Ferris Bueller's Day Off, he's a righteous dude. So each one of the ITIL publications is going to address or cover a segment of the framework. It'll outline what's needed to organize your IT service management. It'll define objectives, activities, inputs, and outputs of each one of the processes that's necessary in your IT organization. Remember, ITIL does not govern or prescribe how these activities are going to be put into place. Okay, this can be a different situation in every organization. Its goal is an approach, a proven approach, that can be implemented a number of different ways. It's a framework for planning the essential processes, roles, and activities, indicating the links or the connections between each of these entities and the lines of communication that are necessary. Now, down through the years, this has been a wide variety of publications, and in version 2, there were 7 publications, and that actually, there were more before that. I think there were like 10. So we've got 7 publications now condensed down into version 5 into 5 publications. Now realize that you may be asking, do I need to go out and spend the several hundreds of dollars to buy all 5 of these books? And I'm going to show you in a second for the ITIL foundations, and the answer is no. Okay, that's one of the reasons why you're using the CBT Nugget. I do that work for you. I go and I condense it down. I give you the key information that you need for the foundation exams. Now, if you're going to go farther than that and you're going to become an ITIL practitioner, then absolutely, you want to invest in the entire library. But part of the foundation is just deciding, once you take the exam and pass it, do you want to continue even farther to become an IT service practitioner or an IT service manager? Now, there's also supplementary books and white papers, and there are also documents published on the web. And I'll show you the organization that you can go to kind of check out and keep tabs on all the different documentation for ITIL. Now, continuing with our background here of ITIL, as I mentioned, it used to be basically 10 books that described the service support aspect and the service delivery aspect. And this was pretty much the core of ITIL. Then there were about 40 other books that were on different subjects related to IT service management, from laying down the actual physical cabling to managing customer relationships in IT. But the original books of the ITIL mostly dealt with IT service management from an information technology perspective. Now, the business perspective set had 3 different titles, and this was basically brought into play to kind of bridge the gap between business and IT organization. You can see here an example of, there was 2 volumes called The Business Perspective, there was Planning to Implement Service Management, and then there was kind of a case study document called ITIL Small Scale Implementation. Most of this information now is outdated, as of course so much has changed in IT and business in the last decade. So we want to focus on the current ITIL, which is 5 volumes. Let's take a look. As I mentioned, the de facto standard for several years was ITIL version 2, and basically it had a series of books that we just saw, each one which covered one of the major disciplines in information technology. We also saw the supportive books that go along with it. But in December of 2005, the OGC, the UK's Office of Government Commerce, issued a notice of ITIL refresh, and this would be the Information Technology Infrastructure Library version 3, or ITIL version 3, which became public on May 30th, 2007, which introduced the publication of 5 new core texts: service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement, as well as a web-based glossary that you can get from the OGC by going to their website. Let me show you what that glossary looks like. This is the PDF file that you can get from the OGC. This is ITIL version 3 glossary, version 3.1.24 for from May 11th, 2007. You can see here it shows you on this page, it has the terms acceptance to alert. And then you can move down through here, and of course you have your term over here in this table, and on the right-hand side, a definition. And so we can go down through here. This would be a really great document for you to get. You don't have to memorize all of these different terms. Obviously, if you were going to go on and move into the practitioner and management, you would ultimately want to know these, but this will help you as a supplementary document to go along with, and I would want to have this just to kind of peruse and maybe go through some of these terms before you take your foundations exam. So this is the ITIL version 3 glossary, about 57 pages in a PDF file. Now we'll talk more about those 5 publications here in a moment, but realize, just like ITIL version 2, ITIL version 3 has some complementary and web-based materials, and the best way to stay on top of that, any new white papers or new web-based publications, is to go to the Best Management Practice website. And this is best-management-practice.com. This is the official umbrella website that's going to give you information on the Office of Government Commerce OGC compliance standards. Not just ITIL, but as you can see also Prince 2 for project management, MSP, and MOR for risk management. You should also be able to find a free PDF version of that ITIL version 3 glossary that I just showed you here. This is one of those things you want to add to your favorites to keep up with supplementary materials. Next, I want to do a brief overview, kind of a fundamental view from 2,000 feet of each of these 5 publications. Now realize that this Foundation CBT Nugget is not laid out on a book-by-book basis. That's not really how the Foundation exam is going to test you. I'm going to go through here and give you the key points that are basically extracted from these 5 publications, but you should know, and as I mentioned already, you don't have to go out and purchase these for the Foundation's exam. If you do purchase these, then of course you'll be able to look at them and know this information. Otherwise, here are the 5 publications, starting with the ITIL version 3 Service Strategy book. The Service Strategy book is going to evaluate the alignment of business and IT strategy. This is really one of the main key focuses of change in ITIL version 3 over version 2, is this focus on the alignment of IT and the overall business, the management of IT throughout the business complete life cycle, and the importance of creating business value through information technology, going beyond just the processes and the execution of processes. So service strategy looks at alignment of IT and business. You want to make sure that your service life cycle focuses on customer-centric results. That's what we focus on in service strategy. The strategy to associate the different process elements to IT and to put into place solid business goals, requirements, and service management principles. These are the 4 key areas that are looked at in the service strategy book. Next is the service design publication, and by the way, this is the actual book right up here that we're looking at in the upper left-hand corner. The ITIL service design publication is going to give guidance on production as it relates to IT and the maintenance of IT policies. It looks at the design to meet the current and future business needs. Obviously, this is a design aspect. It also addresses architectures as well as proper documentation for the design of targeted, innovative IT solutions, processes, and techniques. In this publication, you're going to find well-established, well-documented theories of IT service design. The third book in the series is Service Transition, and it relates to simply that, the transition of IT service state, providing guidance and activity assessment for the transition of services in operational business environments. It's going to cover the broad role of change management, release management, and deployment administration. Service transition is going to consider things like risk, benefits, the delivery mechanisms and changes to those mechanisms, as well as support of the ongoing operational services. Remember, for many organizations, transitioning to an ITIL solution is going to involve a lot of complex changes and complex processes. some of which will affect the very core of the business. Here's the ITIL Service Operation Book. This is going to include operational aspects of information technology service management lifecycle. Remember, this lifecycle is a key aspect of the ITIL. It's also going to have service support information and ICT infrastructure management from the ITIL version 2 library. You know, I don't want to blow by this phrase right here, ICT infrastructure. You might want to write this down. ICT stands for Information Communication Technology. This is defined by the ITAA as the study, design, development, implementation, support, or management of computer-based information systems, particularly software applications and computer hardware. In a nutshell, it deals with the electronic computers, computer software, the process that converts, stores, protects, processes, transmits, and retrieves information in a secure fashion. That's what ICT is. So the service operation is going to relate to this very key ICT infrastructure. It's also going to cover incident management and handling, event management, request management, problem, and identity management. The Service Operation publication also addresses team and function aspects of service management. And finally, our fifth book with the starfish here on the cover is the ITIL Continual Service Improvement. This is going to deal with how to deliver consistent, repeatable process activities for IT service management. It's going to put focus on the importance of continual improvements. Remember, I mentioned this earlier when we looked at some of the famous axioms of W. Edwards Deming. One of those things was consistent and continual improvement. This book also focuses on the process elements of identifying and introducing service management improvements, as well as dealing with service retirement issues, or putting processes out to pasture. Well, those are the 5 books of ITIL version 3. Here's a nice diagram that shows the ITIL publications, the 5 publications of version 3, is kind of at the heart or the core of this entire infrastructure. Now, spawning from these publications, you have organizations. Organizations like the ITSMF, which is the IT Service Management Forum, an independent, internationally recognized forum for IT service management professionals across the globe. It's a non-profit organization, and it's the prominent player in the ongoing development and promotion of the IT service management best practice standards and qualifications, going all the way back over 15 years. And of course, there's the UK's OGC, which offers a range of products and services covering the best practice methodologies on a wide variety of topics, which are industry standards in both the public and private sectors. Then, of course, you have training organizations that train on ITL service management and individual consultants, those who have obtained the foundation certification, the practitioner and management certification, and go out there on their own and consult for organizations and businesses. And then the different arms of qualification. We talked about these in the first nugget, the ISEB and the EXIM, the ones that deliver the testing services to qualify individuals to get those certifications. Then, of course, various third-party vendors create different software solutions for implementation, design, management, and delivery of IT service management solutions. Finally, I want to lay out some of the benefits as well as disadvantages of basing your IT service management structure on the IT information library. Kind of some pros and cons. First of all, what are the pros? What are the benefits? Well, our service level agreements become more customer focused. We're able to better manage quality, availability, reliability, and cost. We improve the communication with our IT organization. We develop a more efficient, lucid structure, a more focused approach. We get better control of our IT infrastructure and services. It provides a standard framework for IT outsourcing, which is such a popular solution nowadays. ITIL changes the culture towards service and quality management, away from just simply a results-oriented approach. And it gives us a frame of reference for standardization as we interoperate with other companies, other vendors, other solutions across the globe. Of course, not everything is peaches and cream. Okay, there's some pitfalls and disadvantages to using ITIL. Potentially, this could involve a drastic change in your organization's business culture. It could take a long ramp up for your company to fully deploy IT service management. The older and more vertical your company is, the longer the ramp-up process. There's also a risk with ITIL, this is very common, of kind of over-engineering by getting so militant and religious almost about ITIL that you end up over-engineering it and actually creating a bureaucracy based on ITIL. And the resulting bureaucratic overhead is actually counterproductive. Also, if your company doesn't have baseline data and a baseline analysis, you're going to have a tough time evaluating the results of an ITIL strategy. It's critical to have a baseline in place to analyze improvement. Also, for this to work properly, you have to have commitment from all levels of business, from the stakeholders to the board of directors to upper management to middle management, all the way down to the worker. Also, ITIL cannot be implemented in just a single department or a single business unit. You can't isolate the tasks of IT service management to just a single team of people or a steering committee or a department. It needs to be a global, comprehensive solution. In addition, the investment outlay and physical, personnel, and financial resources have to be available to put ITIL into place. And remember, the costs can inflate quickly. And then finally, you must understand ITIL as a framework of best practices. Okay? It's not a religious document. It's not like the Magna Carta or the U.S. Constitution. It's a framework of guidelines. And if you keep that in perspective, it will help you to have the right approach to implementing and deploying ITIL service management. Well, that being said, we're going to move beyond some of these introductory topics here as we start getting into the meat of the ITIL and all the different various topics that will be tested on the Foundations exam. In this second movie of the ITIL Foundation CBT Nugget series, we looked at the actual library, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Looked at 4 key points. Background of the ITIL, little overview, ITIL version 3, the 5 books of version 3, the benefits and pitfalls of ITIL. I hope this CBT Nugget's been informative for you. I want to thank you for viewing. We'll see you in the next Nugget movie.